The Roman Soldier Who Couldn't Walk in a Straight Line by Marcus Wilde. This book is dedicated to the Wilde family. All roads lead to Rome. In the year 188 AD, the Roman Empire was at the height of its power in the known world. Europe's countries and city-states were all under the control of Emperor Commodus, who ruled with an iron fist. He would send his armies to crush any uprising by barbarian tribes that dared to oppose the rules and laws that Rome set for them. The citizens of Rome were very scared of him and did everything he said, otherwise they were threatened with exile or worse. During this period lived the Salonicus family. Titus the father and mother Eva were the proud parents of their happy and loving son Pathus, who liked to be known by his nickname Solo. Growing up in northern Italy, the Salonicus family enjoyed their lives as farmers. Titus, before becoming a farmer, had been a soldier in the Roman army. Men at the time had to spend at least 5 years, from the age of 18, in the army. As a young boy, Pathus had many friends his age, who also lived in the villas and homes around the village. Although he liked to play with them, occasionally he preferred to play by himself with his favourite toy, a leather slingshot that he had made. After school each day, he would go out into the field behind his home and practice. Hour after hour he would load his slingshot up with small stones and pebbles, then swirling it around his head, he would let go one of the pieces of leather thong to release the stone at a target. His father made the shape of a tiger out of wood, which he would aim at. After a lot of practice, he became an expert and could hit the tiger every time. After leaving school, Solo helped his father to harvest the crops that grew around their home, as well as giving his mother help around the house. His parents had brought him up to be a kind and respectful young man who loved nature and his life in the countryside. Shortly after his 18th birthday, Pathus was visited by an officer from the 12th Legion of the Roman army. He had come to get Pathus, who was now the right age to start his basic training as a Roman legionary. Solo was content to do his duty. Once he was given a new uniform and equipment, he went off to a camp where he was trained how to be a soldier of the most professional and elite army of the time. He enjoyed the tough training, which got him very fit and taught him how to use different weapons. He didn't like walking in the large formations because he felt restricted by the other soldiers. He also didn't like the hard roads, preferring to walk on the grass with his sandals off. This would annoy the officers. The legion that Pathus was part of had patrolled the borders of the empire for 2 years, keeping the tribes of Gaul and Germania under the rule of Rome. The main work that Pathus and the other soldiers had to do was marching from country to country, gathering slaves and money to send back to Rome. Every time the legion stopped marching for the evening, they built a fortified camp out of trees that they sharpened and stuck in the ground around their tents to keep them safe from barbarian attacks. Roman legionaries were seen more like engineers than soldiers because most of their work involved building roads and forts rather than fighting in battles. On his days off, Pathus enjoyed being alone. Relaxing by himself under a tree, looking at nature's beauty was what he liked to do. The other soldiers would talk about him behind his back. Although they liked him, they thought he was weird. Pathus didn't care what they said about him. During his time in the army, he became an expert at building forts and roads. To calculate different terrain elevation, he would use a device called a groma. The Roman road system spanned more than 250,000 miles. The network of roads enabled the army, trade and news to get around the empire fast and in safety. When it came to fighting the barbarian tribes that refused to be ruled by the laws of Rome without a battle or two, the Roman legions were usually the victors because of their superior battle tactics and discipline. Barbarian tactics were simple. Mostly it involved covering themselves in paint or tattoos, gathering in large numbers in an angry mass of mad-looking people who then shouted and charged at the perfectly formed Romans in front of them. Pathos was a great fighter. He really enjoyed getting in amongst the barbarians once the battle started. The trouble was the officers in charge of him did not agree with his way of fighting. The Roman way was to stay as one strong block of soldiers which would slowly walk over their enemy, crushing them under their collective feet. The officers would often shout and reprimand Pathos for stepping out of line. They warned him that he would get in big trouble one day. After nearly 5 years of service, Pathos had walked thousands of miles and had been to so many different countries. From the hot, sandy deserts of Egypt to the cold, snowy winter wastelands of Gaul at the extreme edges of the empire, Pathos thought of his time in the army as one long holiday. Of course, there were times when he was in danger, but he was confident that the training and discipline of his fellow legionaries would get him through any situation. Sulla was a popular member of the Legion, and because of the amount of battles he had fought in, was now a very good fighter. He had also helped to build some of the castles and forts that were dotted around. Although he was well known for being a great warrior, the centurions that kept the soldiers in straight lines were getting a little bit annoyed at Pathos because, even after all his years of service, he had never walked in step with everyone else and liked to be alone during days off. Pathos finally got in trouble one summer morning. He had stepped out of line to walk on the grass with his sandals off. A centurion spotted him and shouted at him, "Salonicus! If you want to be on your own, then so be it. I'm going to send you somewhere you can be." Pathos had no idea what he meant.